Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, it's the day after film study, unfortunately, and Pitt suffers a really bad loss to a really tough, a Virginia team. Really got stomped. They came out, obviously got stomped by North Carolina 2 weeks ago, 41-14. Virginia goes into a bye week. They have a bye week off. They then go and face Pitt, and you see a game yesterday where there was just numerous issues, and we'll go over a number of those issues, especially with the offensive play, penalties, lack of officiating, especially down the stretch. It just was an all bad night. Just two consecutive games where Pitt has not shown up to what they need to be, what they need to do, and we're going to go over that and go really into the hard, and the nuts and bolts of really what took place on Saturday. A game that probably shouldn't have been close, but it was close. And even down to the wire, Pitt, things just did not go Pitt's way. And also, too, some updates on some injuries, things that really took place during the game that really affected it towards the end of the game for sure. First off, you guys already know the show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA 15102. Guys, anytime you can support a small business, especially run by two great Pitt men like Colonial Beer out in Bethel Park. They have a number of different selections. Obviously, we all go there before all of our tailgates, our house parties, anything that we have, a special gathering. They certainly have it, but more importantly, the customer service and who they are truly tremendous people. So anytime you can help out a small business, it's always fantastic. Again, guys, go see Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA 15102. And also remember to get the Pitt can, the icy light beer can they also have in stock. That restocked again. You guys have been phenomenal in getting that, but also to getting a selection that's currently there. So remember to go out and see my friends at Colonial Beer. The show is also sponsored by Thompson Law Group and Brian Thompson, an attorney on your side. Right now, with many people struggling with the economy and rising costs, they're helping many people and their businesses with debts, and they're also offering free telephone consultations to assess all options available to those who are struggling, no matter the type of amount of debt they are in. You can reach them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Guys, I've said it before, Brian Thompson, obviously another great Pitt man, another great season ticket holder, a person that I preferably use for all of my needs, but more importantly, what he does in the community with his family. A tremendous Pitt man overall, a great individual. The one thing that's great about Brian, whenever you're able to work with him, he really treats you as a true one-on-one specialist. At a larger law firm, they really look at you as a number. Brian looks at you as a regular person, but more importantly, the needs and the outcome that you need to be successful and the needs that you need to. Obviously, make sure you reach out to Brian. He'll answer your questions. If he doesn't have your answer, your questions, he can certainly point you in the right direction because that's who Brian is. So again, guys, reach out to Brian Thompson at Brian Thompson Attorneys, obviously at Thompson Law Group at 724-799-8404, or check them out at a Thompson Attorney or thompsonattorney.com. Thompson Law Group and Brian Thompson. So, guys, obviously, we're going to get into it here. Obviously, the questions are flowing down below. Guys, obviously, as you guys can see, the questions are really coming in here. Comments are coming in. If you are on here, plenty of stuff down below. There's a super chat button. If you want to go up, obviously, I'm going to go through a number of these different ones, probably not all of them. But if you want to have your question read for sure, the super chat button down below, click on that, make a small donation to the program. We certainly appreciate it. But more importantly, we'll get you to the top. It'll be highlighted for me, so I'll be able to read it. Janine, Jenny, I would like to immediately address the ref call on the 4th and 1. Yeah, I mean, that was a crazy call in itself, and I think that when you go back and watch the game, obviously Pitt had a number of different chances to really open it up. But as I was telling people last night, when you're in one of those games and you're in a tight football game, you really don't want calls to really go against you. But these ones were just so blatant. I thought, Chris Carter did a tremendous job in reaching out to the ACC officials, obviously the ACC for comment. I think Jim Hammond did the same exact thing. They really didn't answer the questions. Regardless, Pitt should have had a stop there. There shouldn't have been any issues there. Or worst case scenario, there should have been a penalty on Virginia because of a snap infraction. That certainly changed, of course, especially too in that last portion of the game. They go down the field. They're able to put points on the board. It also goes back, I go back and I watch the tape. That Ryan Bayer call on the 2-point conversion, that in no way, shape, or form was a holding call. That was a horrendous call. And it's just another week for the ACC in officiating. This one came back to bite Pitt. Pitt allowed Virginia to stay in this football game. I thought preferably, honestly, the defense played a hell of a football game. You saw that 20 play touchdown drive by Virginia, really given up because of a real turnover by the offense. That was an issue. Obviously, for me, the defense really only gave up, I think when you really look at it, 17 points. I had no problem with the way that the defense played. There were certainly times where they had a 3rd down and long. There was one 3rd down and 16, according to my notes here, that really got out of hand. 3rd down and 16, they get a 1st down on that kind of stuff. That cannot happen. Lack of execution. But overall, the defense was not the problem in this football game. The lack of drives from the offense, obviously, the beginning penalties, and it goes back to the offensive line. When you watch this offensive line, a number of different changes. Obviously, Isaiah Montgomery started at right tackle. You still had, Ryan Bayer on the starting offensive line. He moved from right tackle to left tackle. I know he had a couple holding calls, but really overall, I thought, especially 2 of them were not good, especially 2 just for what they were in the game. I thought he had a good night. I think Terrence Enos really struggled on the inside on the left guard position. That's something that they're going to probably have to look at. Ryan Jacoby, from my understanding, was not hurt. So, it kind of tells you, they tried maybe switching things up because of what SMU was and how bad the SMU game was in terms of blocking. Lyndon Cooper, I thought he actually had a good game in the middle. He continues to get better each and every single game. But I just think there's right now holes on both sides. And then you have, obviously, the right guard position, B.J. Williams. He was good at times, and there were times that he struggled. But cohesively as a unit, you look at this offensive line, you could tell overall that, Ryan Bayer went to left tackle, obviously over from right tackle, Isaiah Montgomery in there, Terrence Enos in there. They certainly didn't gel, and they certainly weren't all on the same page. The snap infractions, the constant procedure penalties, motion penalties. Hell, in the first quarter, I think there were like 7 penalties that I counted just on the offense. The defense had no penalties. That's lack of preparation in my mind. When you look at this team for what it looked like against SMU, that kind of was a little bit startling. As the game went on, you started to see more and more competency, but also, too, just more of Pitt being able to push the football down the field. Eli Holstein was able to make a lot of connections. There were more drops in this game, obviously, by the wide receivers, by the tight ends. They were able to put up points. But when I was watching this game, guys, the minute that Eli Holstein went out, it was a completely different game. The offense didn't look good to begin with, but it just went down the tubes immediately after that. And it's not just Eli Holstein, it's not just Nate Yarnell. It's the fact of, the offensive line was not good. The majority of the game, as a cohesive unit, was bad. Not being able to block, that's a continuous issue that they have. The wide receivers dropping passes. Raphael Poppy Williams, a lot of his drops, he'll catch in his sleep. Kanate Mumfield getting hurt was a massive injury. So you had Eli Holstein, your starting quarterback, get hurt. He's out. I don't think that if I had to bet right now, I would think he's probably in concussion protocol again. I would probably think at this point Eli Holstein does not play this week. It'll probably be Nate Yarnell against Clemson. That's a concern. Kanate Mumfield, we don't know anything about his status, but he was out in that game. Obviously, Pitt's number 1 wide receiver. Pitt clearly missed him in the second half. Completely missed him. Kenny Johnson made a number of good plays. I think he was really reliable, especially, too, when you saw a guy being able to push the ball down the field or a guy that was able to get open. C.J. Lee and just Raphael Poppy Williams did not play well in this game. Numerous drops. It was just uncharacteristic. And when you look at this team, you got to go back to, the players obviously have to perform, but there has to be a conversation about the coaching staff. When you play as bad as you did against SMU, the score really didn't dictate it. I went back and watched that game. Obviously, I was at a wedding and didn't get to watch it live, but I went back and watched it. It was a horrible game to watch. This game will be tougher because it was in hand. This is a team that really Pitt, when you look at them, Pitt should have won. Pitt probably should be 8-1 right now if they take care of business, but not. They're not. They're 7-2. Clemson, they have Clemson coming up. Clemson struggled with a Virginia Tech team, beat them 24-14 down in Blacksburg. We'll continue to see what they look like. Obviously, I'll be doing a lot of film study. I've done a lot of film study just on what I've been able to watch on their offense as their offense continues to struggle and sputter, but they found a way to win. Good teams find a way to win. And I think that, right now, when you really look at this team, Paul Zeiss had a point about how just Narduzzi will lose these games year in and year out, and I think it's difficult to watch sometimes. But there's also the other side of it, where I could sit here and blame it and just get after the players and the coaches. I do give him credit. Obviously, people complain about James Franklin and whatnot. He won't lose the games he's supposed to. Obviously, he lost to Indiana in 2020 when he shouldn't have lost. He lost to Illinois when he shouldn't have lost. He's lost games to Michigan State he shouldn't have lost. There are a number of those games out there. So, those comparisons, I understand them to a point. But, at the same time, he's got a bunch of losses too. But when you watch Pitt, I understand why people are mad. I understand why people are upset because we were 7-0, now 7-2. The Clemson game's going to be tough. I think without Eli Holstein, there's a lot of question marks there. That's going to be a very tough game to win. Our defense is going to have to play lights out. But at the same time, though, for a team that was 3-9 last year, I had this team this year going 9-3. They're still on the projection base for them to get there. I still think they get to 9-3 regardless. Depending upon, obviously, if Eli Holstein does come back, I think that's a big stipulation to it. But from a year where they were 3-9 last year and they're 7-2 right now, I understand why people are upset, why I'm upset. But there has to be some perspective put into place. They're 7-2 right now. I would really think that they're certainly out of the ACC championship run. They're certainly out of the playoff run, in my opinion, unless something drastic currently happens. I think if Pitt wins out, obviously somehow they find a way to win out. Even without Eli Holstein, they'll certainly be back in the top 25 in terms of the college football playoff. But there are a lot of questions ahead. I think that the defense really continues to get better. We saw much better tackling in this football game. When you dive really, you go into the numbers here from the box score, you look at a guy like Anthony Calandria. Guys, he was 16-24 for 143 yards passing, 1 touchdown pass, and 2 interceptions. At the end of the day, that's a hell of a day by the defense. That's really just consolidating them. The biggest problem was really, on the ground. Xavier Brown, 15 carries for 68 yards. Kobe Pace, 12 carries for 52 yards. They had a couple runs out there that were long. And then Anthony Calandria, he had 14 carries for 40 yards. The 14 carries really were scrambling yards where he took off. But regardless, though, going into halftime, at halftime, it was 13-7. That's kind of where we were at that point. The defense was playing lights out. But it certainly doesn't help when your offense creates opportunities for the defense in Virginia to where they were able to make, critical turnovers, short fieldage. Obviously, the offense not being able to sustain drives. For me, you hold a team under 30 points, and especially too in this case, if you're able to even have a competent drive here and there, Virginia probably, especially too in the interception, it was a 20-yard TD drive for Virginia because of the turnover. They really only score 17 points. That's a great day if you hold a team under 20 points. So I really don't have a problem with the defense. I thought they certainly bounced back. They did what they needed to do. It was a physical outing by them. Just the question at this point really revolves around the offense. And I think that this really truly answered the question about why Eli Holstein was the starter, why Nate Yarnell is not the starter. He'll probably certainly get a chance this week to really prove himself. And having an opportunity maybe we're wrong, but at the same time, though, he came to that game. He made numerous errors, critically down especially too when Pitt had the ball in that last drive. Not sure where he was throwing that ball. There were a number of throws you just looked at and just thought, what are we doing? It just seems to carry over from fall camp from everything I've heard, just turning the ball over. And right now, I just think that overall, both quarterbacks are not playing well. Collectively, the offensive line is not playing well. Drops in the passing game. Now you have injuries to Konate Mumfield. You've got injuries now to the offensive line, obviously, if Jacoby's still out. Obviously, Branton Taylor, your starting left tackle, will not return at all this year. He's going to go off to the NFL. So now you're mixing and matching again for consecutive years where you're now going into your backups. I've said it before, though. We're currently 7-2 right now. There's a lot of football still left to play, obviously. You've got 4 games remaining, or 3 games remaining. 3 games remaining, Clemson, Louisville, and Boston College. Obviously, Clemson will be the last home game of the year for Pitt. This will be the last home game, so it'll be one to watch for sure. But the biggest thing for Pitt's turnaround is going to be how their offense responds and how Cade Bell really decides how he's going to make adjustments and how he's going to coach these quarterbacks and what needs to happen. I think that, when you look at the sustaining injuries that are currently going on at Pitt, I'm not, again, I'm as I sit here today on a Sunday night at 8:21, I just don't see a path how Eli Holstein plays this week. I really don't. That hit looked gruesome. It was a tough one to watch overall. And it's a shame too, because when he got hurt, that's when the offense really started to move the ball. You started to see a lot of connectivity within the offense, the offensive line. The ball was starting to get pushed. And then immediately the change happened, and the offense was just sputtering from there again. And it happened again. So it's going to be something to watch overall and what they do. But I think that this team, the offense took up to the challenge. It really did. It took to the challenge. The question mark really becomes at this point is, what is this offense going to do? And that really falls upon the players on offense, but more importantly, the coaches. The coaching staff really needs to look at what's going on and say, hey, we need to change something. We need to adapt. And why is this not working? Because it does not get any easier. You have ranked Clemson. You got ranked Louisville. You got to at least win one of those games. And Boston College should be a game that, if they have things corrected, they should win that game. But at the end of the day, none of these games are for sure wins. After a loss to Virginia, the schedule was not easy. Again, 3 good opponents. Boston College just beat Syracuse, who was 6-2, just yesterday. So it's a tough schedule going forward, and we're going to find out what kind of Pitt team we have. I think that they find a way to get at least one more win, but it really all depends on if Eli Holstein comes back and what he looks like. And the environment will really be a big thing in Acrisure Stadium next Saturday. The last home game of the year, the last time to watch Pitt really at home in the 2024 season. But it's going to be interesting going forward. That's for sure. Going to some of the questions here, obviously, thank you. As always, smash the like button and subscribe. Thank you. As always, it helps out with the algorithm. It helps grow the channel. Again, if you want to have your comment read, I know they're filing in. If you want to have it read, hit the super chat button. The super chat button will allow you to make a small donation to the program, and it'll put your question right to the top so I can see it. It was hard for the offense to get into rhythm with the illegal procedure, illegal shift, and holding and drop passes. Yeah, I think overall, when you watch this game again, when you just saw the beginning of the game, I don't understand where the penalties just how can it continue to happen? And one of the things that I think that Pitt should do going forward is any game, if they win the toss, should be to defer. They should really defer to the defense to start the game. I understand why they do what they do. The offense to get out there first to get as many possessions as possible. Obviously, you get one more possession. Obviously, if you start the game off, depending upon how fast the game is going. But the one thing that's really changed in this offense, I think, for the majority of this year, and this probably has to do with the offensive line or something, is the fact that the offense is not going as fast as it once was. It's really slowed down quite a bit. And you're watching this team just methodically go through the plays at this point. While there are guys open at times, whether they're dropping passes, illegal procedures, illegal shift, this kind of stuff needs to get cleared up in practice. And that's truly what it comes down to. It needs to get cleaned up in practice. It needs to be better handled throughout the year. I just think that overall, when you're looking at this team and what they do on a consistent basis, they got to get back to the drawing board in practice and really figure it out. Because, when you look at this Pitt season, again, I had them going 9-3. There's 3 games left. Obviously, I thought for sure that, in my when I was looking at things, I thought for sure that our 2 wins, I thought, maybe down the stretch here, 2-2, you'd really finish out the year 2-2. You end the regular season at 9-3. This week's going to be tough. If Eli Holstein doesn't go, I just think with 2 concussions back-to-back weeks, I just don't see how he goes. Just for his pure safety and going forward. But again, I'm not a doctor. Those doctors at Pitt are down there are truly the best. Pitt has the best doctors and the best team medically, so they'll be able to decide if he's healthy enough, if he passes the required test to be healthy enough to play. But overall, it was just out of whack. When you saw that offense start to move the ball towards the end of the second quarter, where it's 13-7, you're starting to get that rhythm, you're starting to make those moves. And then really you get almost halfway through the third quarter, and then Eli Holstein's out, Konate Mumfield's out, potential offensive lineman injuries. You saw that as well. I just think that right now they're just going through a number of different injuries. You're watching that, but also, too, just a lack of execution on offense. There are guys there, but right now the offensive line as a cohesive unit is just really falling apart. And then you compile that with the running game not being as strong. I thought Desmond Reed had a hell of a game. He had a hell of a catch, one-handed catch that really provided a lot of spark, going down the football field, making a catch, put him in great position to score a touchdown. Just a real brutal game to watch, and it's a hard loss. But the biggest thing is obviously you have the last home game of the year. You have Clemson coming into this game, and this team really needs to make that adjustment. And this might be one of those games where Clemson comes in and sees that Eli Holstein's not going to play potentially, and this might be an easy win for them. We'll see, but this might be Nate Arnell's opportunity to really prove that he can play at this level and play at this real in this style of college football and really prove some people wrong again. Personally, I would love that. I just think there's an overall concern for right now for the offense, as it's been really 2 weeks. I should really say 3 weeks. I gave the Cal game. I kind of saw you saw it sputtering. The Syracuse game, I really threw that one out the window because all the pick sixes, you're trying to get into the rhythm. You couldn't get into rhythm. We blew out Syracuse in that game. It was understandable. But really the Cal games, SMU game, and the Virginia game were just not good offensively, not good enough at all, not scoring enough points. And it's been really stagnant, and it really has to change at this point. See what we have here. John Marzullo, discipline has been horrific in the last few games, which is from this group in particular surprises me. John, I'm being honest with you, I agree as well. Heard about how tough practice was, how physical practice was this week. The Pitt defense certainly showed up. I mean, it was a physical game up front for Pitt's defense. I thought they played really well. Sean Fitzsimmons had himself another game. Nick James had himself another good game. Nate Matlack certainly didn't get a couple of holding calls on his way, but he was creating pressure all night. Taman Lynham obviously getting an interception, which was really cool to see out of him. Just overall, I thought the defense played well. But when you just look at this group, like you're saying on offense, it just didn't look good cohesively. And I don't know if it's because they made a number of different changes. Ryan Bayer going from right tackle to left tackle. Terrence Enos moving from left tackle to left guard. B.J. Williams is still in there as a starter. Lyndon Cooper as a starter. But then you saw Isaiah Montgomery at right tackle. That was his first start. So really, can you blame him for maybe not having a great game? Can you blame Terrence Enos from going to tackle to guard? Just a lot of mixing and matching at this point. And I think that the coaching staff is kind of looking at this offensive line saying that, which guys truly want to play. I think when you look at this offensive line, your core at this point is Ryan Bayer, Lyndon Cooper, and B.J. Williams. Those are really your top of the line guys at this point. But as a cohesive unit, they just probably haven't had enough time, and it just looked like garbage. It didn't look good. Again, the procedure penalties, it's like, damn, this is the 9th game of the year. We shouldn't be having these penalties, these procedure penalties, these shift penalties. And then when Konate Mumfield went out of the game, and again, Mumfield's our number one wide receiver. You really saw Raphael Poppy Williams and, C.J. Lee just disappear. Numerous mistakes, numerous drops, just uncharacteristic, and to not be able to step up. I thought Bartholomew had some really good catches. He had a couple drops in the game too. It's just been one of those. It's been one of those. Last couple of games, you're really watching just the team not really focus in. And again, the atmosphere at Acrisure Stadium was great. I mean, it was like it had been like 55 to 57,000 in that range, close to it. Just a really good overall atmosphere. I still think it's going to be a great overall atmosphere against Clemson. Clemson certainly travels. So there'll be a number of Clemson fans up here as well. So we'll be having a good fun there, like in 2021. That was a great atmosphere then. I expect to be a great atmosphere again this weekend as the last home game for Pitt this year. But overall, plenty of stuff for Pitt to play for at this point. I mean, you're going for, really you want to go 9-3 or 10-2 at this point to really show, heck, even, at the end of the day, if I'm being realistic without taking the fan out of it, 7-5 is still an improvement. 8-4 is an improvement. But for how this season went, when you're 7-0, you should at least go 8-4, 9-3, or 10-2. That's kind of where we are at this point. That's really what it should come down to and what it should be. And that's kind of where I see the improvement at. As a fan, you want to see, hey, at worst 8-4, and it depended upon who's out. That's going to have a lot to do with it. Does Eli Holstein play in this game coming up? Is he not playing this game? How many games does he potentially miss if he has those games to miss? But also, too, how does Nate Yarnell play? When he gets a full week of practice with all the repetitions, what does he truly look like? But, he's going to, if he gets his shot this week, this is a hell of a time to prove it. And I know the Pitt defense will be fired up again. But the real question mark that I have at this point is, when it comes to offense, the discipline has to be regained. The discipline has to be a lot better. And I think that the players right now, can hold themselves accountable, but it really starts with this coaching staff on offense. Cade Bell, I think he needs to really lead this group. Lindsey Lamar. Lamar Lindsey. He needs to lead this group. JJ Laster needs to lead this group. Just overall, it's got to get better. It has to get better, coaching wise and player wise. See if I can move the list down here. Again, guys, I'm seeing a lot of comments come in, guys. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. But if you have, hit the super chat button so it pops up so I can read it. Matt, some of those calls sucked, but we just could not get out of our own way the entire game. Matt, I agree. T-Man, offense's biggest issue is the line play. Cannot run the ball due to them. Routes have zero time to sleep. Probably just a mistypo there. Because of poor pass protection, Eli's rushing throws, resulting in short arming them due to obviously just the pass rush, which I agree. There were times, you saw really in the middle, whether it was an outside pass rush or up the middle, just lack of communication with the offensive line, and the pressure's getting there so quickly. And they're certainly getting up in the face of Eli Holstein or Nate Yarnell. It's just tough to watch, and it has to get better. But also, too, it just gets to the point where, that's kind of what we have the last 3 or 4 games between this and the bowl game. This is a real opportunity for guys to really show, can they take a hold of that position? Obviously, your anchor this, going into next year will be, Ryan Bayer, Lyndon Cooper, and BJ Williams. But after that, you're going to see, I think, potentially, Pitt go out into the portal, add some additions through there. See some guys, especially that are backups right now. Kind of shocked. One guy that I think that should be out there at the guard position, to be honest with you, at left guard, should be Terrence Moore. I think Terrence Moore should be getting a lot more looks. I think Jackson Brown should be getting a lot more looks. Those are two guys that I would certainly take a look at. I think Jackson Brown can play the right tackle position. I think he should be given a shot. Terrence Moore, obviously the guard position, potentially they're probably trying to hold him back because obviously he's the backup center. They don't want, if Lyndon Cooper gets hurt, that's your guy that needs to be there. They don't want Terrence Moore getting hurt. But at this point, you got to play the best guys. Also, too, a guy that I think that when we get past, we have really 4 games left now, including the bowl game. I think a guy like Caleb Holmes, the true freshman, I wouldn't be shocked if you start to see him get some playing time, whether it's this coming week or the week after. That'll be something to watch as we go forward because he'll be able to have 4 games. There's only 4 games remaining. So, he's a guy to watch for now. I think he can get some time. So I think in terms of the offensive line, guys that really should get a look, Terrence Moore, Jackson Brown, and Caleb Holmes. I think they should really get a look in terms of rotational look because if these guys aren't getting it done as a cohesive unit, you got to start finding something else, to where it makes sense. And that starts with offensive line coaching, especially to a technique and finding the right group of people that you can put in there and really plug in there and make a really big difference. And then the question itself should probably be questioned is legitimately coaching. Where is the coaching at this point in terms of development? So we'll see going forward. Yeah, but Eli and Nate Yarnell, and I've said it before, a lot like, with other teams, whether it's a National Football League or college football, it's never just the quarterback. There's times like even last year where, Phil Dracovic was under pressure, couldn't make a throw, but obviously there's a massive difference between Phil Dracovic, who was absolutely unfortunately god-awful, to what we're seeing this year. I think we have two comparable quarterbacks. Obviously, Eli Holstein has shown to be, a potential superstar. He's going through a kind of like a freshman slump a little bit, but a lot of it has to do with the overall pressure, drop passes, lack of execution. I think sometimes the lack of play calling. I just think that they're trying to do too much. They're getting out of rhythm. They're not really doing what they do that makes them really good. The creativity in the passing game, I think, has been, subdued a little bit in terms of limited with the way the defenses are playing Pitt right now. At this point, this group has to get in there like it was today. It certainly had their meetings today. It certainly had a team meeting, did team review, individual review. They washed it, they cleaned it, all that good stuff. I know they took the team overall took this loss really hard. Being 8-1 and then, pursuing your goals towards an ACC championship game, had a potential to get there. With that kind of out the window, you're really fighting for a top tier bowl at this point, but also too, potentially, trying to finish out going 10-2. That seems kind of unlikely if Eli Holstein does not play this week. 9-3 kind of puts you 9-3, the 8-4 mark. But overall, the whole point to where I think Pitt needs to really focus on is that 9-10 win mark at this point, including the bowl game. I think it's kind of where we need to be at this point. So we'll be watching and seeing how it looks going forward, but plenty to still play for and to really clean up and really put Pitt in a position to where they go in the offseason and have a chance to really produce themselves in a way they can really go out and recruit. Because at the end of the day, it's been a rough 2 games, guys. But let me tell you something. Pitt is 7-2. I wouldn't put it out there. I wouldn't shy away from saying that there's no way they win any of these 3 games. They certainly can. The way the ACC has played out this year, I mean, again, there's still great teams on this schedule. But regardless, you never know the way the ACC handles out, and obviously with the way that Pitt's playing on defense, it can certainly, once this offense turns it around, Pitt's back to the way it was the first, 5, 6 games, 6, 7 games of the year. So some of these calls suck, but we could not get up our own way the entire game. Saw that one. Had to get off Twitter today. PSU fans were insufferable. I mean, yeah, Matt. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Penn State. It's not like they've won anything in any recent memory. They're not going to be in they're not going to be in the ACC title. I mean, in the Big Ten title game. Unless Oregon or Penn State or Oregon or Ohio State find a way to lose another game, which I don't think they will with the remaining schedule. I think that if Penn State takes care of business like they're supposed to, they'll play a playoff game. But I wouldn't even think that they probably win that game with how they play against tougher opponents. Their record speaks for itself against tougher opponents, but that's Penn State. So they're happy now till they lose another game. So seemed like plays were finally opening up, just couldn't hit them. Eli still gives the team the best chance to win. Definitely higher upside, but I don't know if he'll play this week. Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, it's not. I mean, if anything, this game should have shown why Eli Holstein's a starter. I never understood why a lot of these people were trying to come out and say that Nate Yarnell should get a shot, all this kind of stuff. It's just there's a night and day difference there. Do I think that Nate Yarnell can certainly do a lot of stuff to help us win football games? Yeah. Do I think that he's better than Eli Holstein? Hell no. Eli Holstein is your best quarterback on this roster. But it'll be interesting to see what Nate Yarnell does in this week of practice. And then obviously the backup there will be Ty Diefenbach. Ty Diefenbach. And we'll see what he does going forward. Still a lot to play for. These 3 games really will decipher a lot of what happens going forward in terms of, what this offseason will look like, to be honest with you. If Pitt can finish strong and get to 9 wins overall, it's a damn good. I think it's a damn good season, especially coming off a 3-9. And then you go into this offseason, you round up the donors, you round up the collective fan base, buying into, obviously, Alliance 412, which is so important right now. You get the collective players through the transfer portal. You have Eli Holstein back. You've got Cade Bell back. Hopefully, obviously, you fix the corrections. Obviously, add a couple pieces into the offensive line. You add a couple pieces into the passing game with the wide receivers. And then you have a team that goes after it again, 10-plus wins again. I mean, it's all there. I think that they're building. And I think that, in a way, as Pitt fans, we should be happy that we're sitting here at 7-2. I had Pitt going 9-3, but there were still question marks of how this offense would look. Obviously, watching tape from from a number of different practices, I watched it. I knew this team had talent, but at this point, I think Pitt fans should overall be upset because they should be winning these games. I mean, it's still not good to lose these games that they're losing to, especially to a Virginia team that was just not very good. But compared to last year, it's a severe jump forward back into relevant conversation where we're in week 8, week 9, and Pitt's in relevant conversations in terms of the college football playoff last week. I mean, this time last year, it was absolutely apparent how bad Pitt was playing. So it's a major jump forward. The whole point is finish out strong this year, get as many wins as possible, hopefully double-digit wins, and then you have that opportunity to go into the offseason, have an opportunity to really sell an image to recruits, finish out your recruiting class, then go after transfer players, obviously the transfer portal, and then really compete this coming year in the ACC to go after another ACC title game. It's kind of how I see it. Mary Beth and Robert McCafferty. Everything with this game was a struggle. Offense is stumbling now more than earlier in the season. Can't get plays in last night. Yeah, I agree. It was a certain struggle for sure. Do you think Eli Holstein will be okay? I certainly think he'll be okay. Do I think he's a guaranteed start this week? I do not. I think as we sit here today, if we had to make a decision today, he wouldn't be starting this coming weekend. Just because of the severity, obviously having multiple concussions back to back, that's going to be something to watch. And again, I'm not a doctor. Pitt has the best doctors on the planet down at the Southside facility, obviously with UPMC. They'll be able to go through all the tests, see what he looks like. Does he pass them? Does he clear them? I just think it's going to be tough on a normal week, just my opinion, but we'll see. But Eli Holstein will certainly be okay. He's a tough kid. He's exactly what you want at Pitt for how tough he is. And obviously, we're all pushing for him to get better as fast as possible, obviously. Speedy Tortoise, agree 100%. Going from 3-9 to 7-2 is a hell of an accomplishment. Even if they end up 7-5, it's a 180, 95% of the time. Pitt is fun to watch this year and are only going to get better. Speedy Tortoise is a very good comment. Going from, and I think that one I'm happy with overall. I'm happy with people really forgetting last year. Because, guys, that was just so hard to watch last year on a scale of just 1 to 10, just how hard it was. It was probably like a 9.5, 10, just for how many games Pitt was in and how many games Pitt lost. To be sitting here at 7-2 after a 3-9 season, I'll take it all day around. And, I thought Carla Zofko really had a great comment last week, after the SMU loss and said, hey, what we're seeing here is there's a bunch of talent on this football team. But what we need to do is to go into the offseason, hit the important pieces of where we need adjustments to, where we need improvement at, and then really go after a college football playoff and an ACC title shot. Because the players, for the majority of the part of are there. There are certainly holes on this team, like any other team around the country. Heck, you're watching, Iowa State, who was ranked undefeated. They lost 2 games in a row. Kansas State losing again. They're dropping in the polls. Iowa State looks to be probably dropping out of the top 25. Kansas State probably dropping out of the top 25. BYU almost losing to Utah on a very risky call. It's just a parody of college football at this point. But I think that when Pitt goes into this offseason, there's a damn good chance they add the right guys. They look on both sides of the football. Obviously, too, call it the way it is. I thought Caleb Junko had another horrible game. Hopefully this is the last season we watch that. I mean, it's punting for Christ's sake. That's going to be a big one to get fixed. Kind of a surprise. Cade Dowd, the transfer in from Independence Community College, has not been given a shot, but there might be some politics behind that. But it needs to get better. And I think that overall, while I totally agree, everyone should be upset, as I am upset. Because that was a horrible thing to watch, especially when you're in the stadium and you're watching it. But but understand the perspective of where we're coming from. A 3-9 season to 7-2 right now. I mean, it's a great step up. But right now, I think for Pitt and their standards, Pitt needs to get after it in practice. Pitt needs to get after it in the film study. Because if you go 7-5 and you lose your last 5 remaining games, depending upon injuries, obviously, and what really entails of that, I'll kind of skew it if the injuries are still there. But there's no reason why you shouldn't at least win, 1 or 2 of these games, in my opinion, for what the team has, especially this home game. I certainly don't count this Clemson game coming up as a complete loss. People are like, well, this Pitt team's going to get dog walked against Clemson. I mean, Clemson just struggled against a Virginia Tech team who could not play any worse than it has been in the previous games. And it was at Virginia Tech. So, I mean, at the end of the day, these next 3 games will really tell us, a lot going into next year. I think there's a lot of talent on this football team. We'll see the resolve of this football team. It's a great headspace in that locker room. They were not happy about this loss. They were beyond pissed off about this loss. There may have been some hard conversations in those locker rooms. But it was important. It was important conversations. And I think going forward, you're going to start to really see who really wants to win and who doesn't. And right now, collectively in that group, in that locker room, I think that they're going to turn it to a point where, hey, we're not going to let this shit slide. And I think that the leadership on this football team will kind of put it in that direction. At the end of the day, it's just going to come down to the offense. The defense has done its job. I expect the defense to continue to do its job. Obviously the SMU game was really the only bad game that you looked at and said, man, it was just a damn bad game on defense. But this offense will really tell us how many more games we win. And it comes down to offensive line play, comes down to quarterback play, comes down to wide receiver drops, non-drops, route running, lack of zero to lack of procedure penalties, illegal shifts, execution. And I think that this football team really needs to dive in this week and figure out what the hell they want to do. There's 3 games left. There's 1 more home game. Obviously, I'll be there Saturday. It's the last home game of the year. It's going to be a hell of an environment again with Clemson coming to the town. A couple buddies of mine that are coming up from North Carolina who are Pitt fans. And then there are a couple of friends of mine that are down in South Carolina are coming up. They're Clemson fans. I know them very well. So we got people coming out of state for Pitt fans, people coming out of state for obviously the Clemson game, the Clemson fans. It'll be a great game. But Pitt really needs to do some soul searching on offense. And that goes not just for the players, but the coaches. The coaches need to do some soul searching and figure out what the hell are we doing. Guys, again, we have 200 people in here right now. If you did not hear before, obviously I haven't gotten to all the questions. It's going to be hard to as we're 43 minutes in. If you want to get your question read, go down below, hit the super chat button, make a small donation to the program, and it'll light up, and I'll be able to answer that question. And obviously, it certainly helps out the program. And also, too, if you've not done so, if you're over on X, we've now got 203 people watching right now between X and YouTube. Head over to YouTube, hit the like button to the video, and hit subscribe. It's certainly helping us grow as we release more content this week, especially with the game coming up. And obviously, a lot of the breakdown, what we're going to be seeing from Clemson. Obviously, that breakdown, potentially maybe even have somebody on. It'll be fun games to watch for sure and more content to go forward. But more importantly, even to the power rankings in the ACC, as in my power rankings this week, Pitt will drop again. But overall, ACC content, everything. So make sure you subscribe, like. If you want your comment read, hit the super chat button. Doug, who will be the backup QB for Nate if Eli cannot play? That'll be Ty Diefenbach. Ty Diefenbach, quarterback. He's a redshirt freshman this year. Came over from California. Was recruited by Frank Signetti. I think he's actually potentially has a high ceiling to be a great quarterback here at Pitt. Just learning the offense, learning what really goes entails the schematics of this offense. I think he needs to get better at. But overall, he's going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of reps this week because he's going to be the backup going forward if Eli Holstein cannot play. So that'll be the tail. Be a real opportunity for Ty to get a good look in front of this coaching staff again and what it looks like going forward if Nate Yarnell has to start, depending upon the health of Eli Holstein. Also, too, it was also, guys, it was so great. I mean, the amount of people, I wanted to say this too before I forget. It was so great to meet so many of you at the game, at the tailgates. Obviously, we gave away our first bobblehead. We'll pick another winner for this week. If you were at the Clemson game, if you go on to my live stream from a couple weeks ago, or onto my Twitter account. You'll see how to enter for a chance to win the last Larry Fitzgerald bobblehead. We have one more to give away. I'll be giving it out. I'll be giving it away this next Saturday at the Clemson game. So if you want to get involved with that and find a way to win a Larry Fitzgerald bobblehead, you can certainly do that. But it was so great to just have so many different conversations with you guys and meet so many different people. It truly is the best. That's why I love doing this stuff. I love having those conversations with you guys. It's certainly a pleasure and a privilege to meet so many of you that watch the show, support the show. But it's always good to have a conversation with Pitt fans overall. So that was really a lot of fun to meet a lot of you guys and to hear your stories about why you became Pitt fans, why you watch the podcast. It's a lot of fun. So I appreciate everything. The amount of parents, obviously, Lyndon Cooper's mom. It was great to meet you, obviously, on North Shore Drives. That was obviously fun to see you and meet you before the game. So I wanted to give you a shout out, obviously. I'm very thankful for you and your whole family to be here, and especially Lyndon Cooper to be here. And then obviously thank you to Russ Bayer. Got to see him before the game as well to pick up that last Larry Fitzgerald bobblehead that he donated. Just overall, man, it's just really good to meet all you guys and just overall great experience from the conversations that we were able to have. Let's see. Will here, Super Chat. Thank you so much, Will, for the donation. It certainly helps out the program. Is our offensive line depth really so bad that Bayer has to slide to left tackle? This is actually a very good question. Is our offensive line depth really so bad that Bayer has to slide to left tackle? The offense has been off every level for a month now. Something has to give. Well, Will, to your point, I think it kind of has. But also, too, what this kind of tells me, too, is next year, like when Matt Gonsalves moved over, like Brenton Taylor moved over, in my opinion, Ryan Bayer is a guy who can play at the next level. He can play on Sundays. I think his natural-born position is the left tackle position. He's built for that spot. I think he can certainly play either tackle position. He's certainly shown that. But I think that overall, going into next year, he's going to be that left tackle. I think that they probably said, you know what, but the way the offensive line is playing, it can't get much worse. Regardless, it did not look good again on Saturday, but it was better than what SMU game looked like. I think overall, he's going to be the future, the left tackle for next year as well. So it's probably good to get him over there now. And I think his third chance right now is to really mix and match what's currently out there. Again, I think Terrence Moore should be on that football field. Caleb Holmes, the freshman offensive lineman out of Georgia, who's really good friends with B.J. Williams. They were teammates. I wouldn't be shocked if you see him this week. Terrence Moore should get a shot. Caleb Holmes should get a shot. But also, too, Jackson Brown potentially at the right tackle position. I think that he's a guy that can play left tackle or right tackle. I think he was obviously hurt in the beginning of the year. He's back healthy now 100%. He should be able to get a look. I mean, there's nothing. What's it going to hurt? The only thing at this point is that I think they kind of want to watch overall with the in and out and the switching the offensive linemen so much because of the continuity. And you watch it this Saturday where there were so many procedure penalties, so many false starts, illegal shifts. I mean, there's just so much stuff that went wrong procedurally that just should not happen. We complained about this with the Frank Signetti era towards the end of the year. That kind of stuff should not be happening. Another guy to watch, Ty Ray. I think he's a redshirt freshman, can certainly play either the tackle position, saying 6'7". I think he's physical. He is certainly able to play. I think you potentially have a chance to see him get out there. They're going to probably start trying guys that just say, hey, you know what? Whoever plays the best and whoever's out there and truly shows the most competency and really goes out there and plays at a high level that gives us the best opportunity to win, they're going to get the chance to play. It's that simple. And I wouldn't be shocked going forward with it. And again, like I said, Terrence Moore should be getting a shot from what we saw last year. Maybe not the center position, but the guard position at least. I think he's a better guard than he's a center, to be quite honest with you. Jackson Brown at the right tackle position. I think he needs to get a shot and get a chance to look at it, or at least rotate him in. Jackson Brown at right tackle. Then we said Terrence Moore, Jackson Brown, and then Caleb Holmes, the true freshman, the right guard position, or if he has to play right guard, or if he has to move to left guard, or if B.J. Williams obviously being more secure and a guy who's had so many different reps, I think he could probably play left guard or right guard. So if you had to move him because he has more experience, that's fine. And then lastly, too, Ty Ray, a guy that can play either tackle position. And I think maybe as a guy that maybe you have to rotate in there at the right tackle position, or, to give time and reps off for Ryan Bayer. But I think Ryan Bayer is truly your best offensive lineman at this point, the way he's been playing. And then obviously interiorly, I mean, you look at just B.J. Williams continues to play at a high level, but you just look at this offensive line collectively, it's just not doing the job. I mean, there's just missed assignments left and right, and it's always one or two missed guys. Again, the officiating in this game was absolutely atrocious. And I understand what Pitt fans are saying. I'm not disagreeing with it. They shouldn't have been in that position anyways. It shouldn't have come down to that. But when you are in that bit of a game and the calls are so blatantly missed, like the holding call on Ryan Bayer, I mean, that was an absolutely horrendous holding call. I mean, that's just absolute bullshit. That 2-point conversion in itself should have happened. So it's a tie game at that point. The fourth down play, it should have been a turnover or at least a 5-yard penalty. If it's a 5-yard penalty, they probably don't go for it. They probably go to try to kick a field goal. And then you obviously still have about 6 minutes. 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. That changes the complete complexity and direction of your play calling. Maybe you're not pushing the ball down the field as much. Pitt was certainly moving the ball. You saw really Nate Yarnell try to put one in there and really tried to push it and just absolutely threw it to the defender. I think that just a lot of that stuff really changes the game. And there are just certain plays in the game. If it's a tweener, hey, I get it. You won't see me complaining about it. If it's a tweener, hey, it can go either way. It happens. Regardless, it's a tough job for the official. But when it's so blatantly wrong and it's just so blatantly out of touch, it has to be talked about. And that's what really pissed me off towards the end of the game. Beyond mad at how bad the offense looked, and you saw it finally start to catch some wind. You saw all the momentum starting to go back to the Pitt offense, and then Eli Holstein gets hurt, Kanate Mumfield gets hurt, and just every bit of momentum just evaporates. And then at the end of the game, when Pitt still has a chance to win the ball game, they get absolutely butchered on a 2-point conversion that should have actually happened. They get that. And then you obviously you base it off of that. They should have gotten that, but they don't get it. But then the fourth down call, it's just, I'm not sure I've ever seen that in college athletics or the NFL or any level. I just don't understand how the referees are out of position. I mean, he was rolling, but regardless, it should have been a snap infraction to where it should have been a 5-yard penalty. So it's just everything. And it's just from the offense being just sporadic and not having no momentum and just not playing well, to the bad officiating, which has been a total ACC college football, sporadic this year across college football for how bad the officiating has been. It's just been a bad couple games for Pitt. And, again, I think all of this, even if Eli plays or he doesn't play, if Pitt is able to find a way, I don't care if it's 1 point, I don't care if it's 30 points, it doesn't matter. If Pitt's able to find a way to beat Clemson at home, it changes the trajectory of the rest of the season, I think, in the last final 2 games. I think that the Pitt defense will certainly find a way to keep the game close, but it really is going to come down to whether Eli Holstein's healthy or not. If he plays, what does Nate Yarnell look like? If Eli isn't going to play, what does the repetitions look like for Nate Yarnell during the week? How does he prepare? How does he get better for that game? I just think the way the AC looks, we don't know who's going to win what. There's no guaranteed win for anybody at this point as you see the season goes on. Hell, Miami lost to Georgia Tech yesterday. So anybody's beatable at this point. And we've watched it across college football for numerous games now. Georgia getting waxed by Ole Miss. Texas beating the brakes off of Florida. Iowa State losing to Kansas. I mean, Kansas is absolutely horrendous. I mean, you're watching some of these games, and there's games you should win, and they're just not getting it done at this point. They need to align the portal as well, and the wide receiver and the D line. I agree. The near abandonment of the run game is a major red flag, in my opinion. Yeah, I think there's more of it. It kind of tells me a little bit more just to begin with. I'd like to see more power football in the short yards, just always in the shotgun. Speedy Torres, that's a very good point. Agree, Adam. Those positions need extra NIL attention in the offseason. Yep, that's why I'm telling you guys more and more. More and more stuff in terms of of money for NIL. It is what it is. Yeah. Again, shout out. Yep, we saw this one here. Will, again, appreciate the super chat as always. Pitt do not want to commit to the run. They do not want to run the ball at all. Yeah, Donovan. For me, I think they don't want to run the football because of just a lack of execution. I just think the offensive line is just struggling up front, and Kate's probably seeing that, saying, "Look, if we can't run the football, why try it?" But at the same time, though, you have to try to establish it. But even when they try to establish it, it just doesn't look good. But then again, I think that comes down to the offensive line coach, comes down to the offensive line, comes to actually doing it. Will, all due respect, almost 20 minutes and a half, dozen regular chats answered since I posted my super chat. My bad, Will. Did I actually read yours? Yeah, I read yours. Maybe I missed it early on. Maybe I missed another one. Yarnell tried to force the ball down the field too much, trouble throwing a double coverage instead of taking yards and chunk yards. Yeah, I agree. But to Will's point here, again, I just think that the offensive line is becoming a major issue. I just think it comes down to cohesiveness. And I think that to your point again, Will, it just comes down to, he has to move to left tackle because of what we currently have. But I also do think, again, he is the future left tackle at that position next year. So you might as well start playing him at that point. You might as well start playing it to the point where, hey, you might as well put him out there, understand, hey, if he doesn't get it in there, you have an issue. So for me, I think it's better that Ryan Bayer's over there because I think personally, I think he's the best tackle on the team at this point. He's the best option you have at left tackle, so you might as well put him there because obviously you don't want Eli Holstein or Yarnell to get killed. Obviously, it doesn't help that when Eli runs, obviously he took a really bad hit. Obviously, thank God also to a targeting call, which was really big on that play. That was a big thing too. Just a tough game overall, and again, looking at the stats here, you look at the Pitt rushing game. I will say this though, we talk about Donovan. I will say this: Desmond had 16 carries for 80 yards. He rushed for 80 yards in this game. Nate Yarnell 6 carries for 23 yards. Eli Holstein for seven carries for 18 yards. Daniel Carter for 3 carries, 26 yards. So overall, the team rushed 32 times for 127 yards. I think, Will, to your point too, I think you had a question in there as well. It comes down to trying to establish the run, but even the short yardage stuff. But I just think that, even the short yardage game, there's just got to be more push up front. There has to be more push. There has to be better offensive line play, but more consistency around the play calling as well. And I think that, again, I think a second year of this, I think there might be some, hope, I shouldn't say hopefully, but there may be some changes on the staff in terms of offense, what that looks like, especially up front. We'll see what that looks like. But I think at this point, when you look at this offensive line, it's the best thing in the world to this point that, Ryan Bayer has to be your left tackle at this point because you got to protect Eli Holstein. He's Bayer is your best tackle you have on the team. And I think at this point, it's the best thing you can do at this point, just to have him at left tackle now, so you're ready for next year, because Ryan Bayer will be your left tackle next year, so you might as well play him now. Holstein and Yarnell have both thrown multiple INTs trying to hit the big play instead of taking the defense gave them. At what point do you wonder about coaching with that? It's coaching, but also too, they're just trying to make a big play. They think they see something, they're able to put it out there. At the end of the day, I understand giving the defense what they give you, but sometimes too, you got to push the ball down the field. You got to get them off of, especially too in the run game. You got to get them off there too. It's almost like a double-edged sword. You want to be able to go back and forth and really be able to have an option where you want to push the ball down the field to push your cornerbacks back. Obviously, the cover 3 set, especially having them back deep. Sometimes if you try to hit that guy up top, you don't want to throw a pick or anything like that, obviously. But it's pushing the guys back to where that intermediate passing game can be there. I also think it comes down to also better play calling. There has to be better options in the passing game. I'll be back in to watch that game again, just the route trees overall. But I just think collectively, it's the whole thing. It's the whole thing at this point. Let me see here. Well, we hit the hour mark. If there's no more super chats or no more questions, guys, it's going to be a big week this week. There's going to be plenty of stuff to talk about. There'll be plenty of stuff to look at. And there's a lot of things to go forward. Donovan here. Pitt rushed the ball 6 times at the half. Yeah. Was it 6 times? I'll have to look. I mean, overall, if it was 6 times, all right. So they ran the ball 6 times in the first half, and then they ran the ball. They ran the ball what 10 plus times, 15 plus times in the second half. So they tried to establish it in the second half. So, I see what you're saying, Donovan, in terms of not being able to establish the run and whatnot. But at least they actually did. I mean, heck, they went into the second half of the lead, and they came out with it and tried to establish it, and it started to work a little bit. But I think the minute the minute Eli Holstein went out, that's when it became a problem, because it was almost like they were going to run the ball no matter what. Team Man, WVU on Friday, Clemson on Saturday. Let's pack the Pete and the Ack. I agree, Team Man. I will be there. It'll be fun to see more of you guys again on Saturday. Guys, but we hit the hour mark. Appreciate everything you guys do. If you have not done so, hit the like button and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Let's talk more about it. Obviously, want to hear more from you guys. If you've not done so, hit the like button and subscribe to the podcast on here on YouTube. Appreciate everything you guys do. Love meeting you guys, obviously, at the game. It was so much fun. Cannot wait to see what we have in store this weekend. It's back on the saddle. We'll be doing a lot of film review. Obviously, Clemson is up. I expect the atmosphere to be incredible atmosphere against Clemson. They travel well. People will be coming out of state, like I talked about it with Pitt fans. They'll be coming out of state. It'll be fun to see and fun to talk about overall. Guys, as always and forever, hail to Pitt and hail to the ACC. I'll see you next time.